Well, we are done with day one of week one, and it was a wild one. I'm not going to preview every game that was played because, well, there were a lot. Um, but I have several games that I am going to talk about in this video. We're going to start with Boise State and South Florida. That one was a wild one. We're going to talk about UCF, Central Florida, and Jacksonville State because that one needs to be talked about. Rutgers, Ohio, I am going to talk about. We're going to talk Nebraska and, well, Nebraska and Cincy. That one was another wild one. And East Carolina, North Carolina State is one that we're going to talk about. Possibly Minnesota and Buffalo. Yeah, we're going to talk Minnesota Buffalo. And yeah, I might cover Oklahoma State and Tennessee Martin just because, well, we need to talk about what this looks like for those teams. So, hit that like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, helps me out quite a bit. And let's get into this wild day of football.
Hey folks, this is Paul with Redneck Sports. I want to thank you for viewing my video, and I want to give you one thought process. There was a famous coach at University of Tennessee by the name of General Robert Nealon. He had 6 maxims, but number 2 maxim is what everybody should apply to their life. Play for and make the breaks. When one comes your way, score. That's how to live your life right there.
The first game that we're going to talk about is South Florida 34, Boise State 7. Boise State got their only touchdown first quarter of the game. Then South Florida reeled off in the next 3 quarters 34 points to blow the betting line way out of proportion. So Boise State was supposed to win this game 4.5 points. By 4.5 points. I mean that was first time South Florida's beat a top 25 opponent since October 28th, 2016. They beat Navy, who was then 22nd in the nation. Quarterback Byron Brown ran for 2 touchdowns. Keshawn Singleton caught a 45-yard touchdown pass on a fake punt. And South Florida just took it to him. Alex Golish coached the living daylights out of this game. Brown was 16 of 24 for 210 yards, had 43 yards on the ground. Cratavious Norton had an 8-yard touchdown. Uh, Singleton had 5 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. Chaz Nimrod, Tennessee. Hey, I love Chaz Nimrod at Tennessee. I thought that he was underutilized, but then again, no, you saw the kind of quarterback that we had at Tennessee last year. He had a reception for 96 yards. Boise State's Maddox Madsen was 25 of 46. So this man just, since he didn't have somebody to pass it off to, just was not doing good. 225 yards, touchdown pass to Chris Marshall. They lost 3 fumbles and failed to convert on a 4th down 3 times in South Florida territory. Latrell Capples led Boise State with 4 catches, 58 yards. The fake punt was wild. South Florida was facing a 4th down at Broncos 45. Golish decided to sneak back at quarterback Lachlan Hewlett in as the punter. Freshman was able to execute the fake punt to perfection, hitting an open Singleton inside the 20, and receiver broke 3 tackles from there to get to the end zone. This is a game that you should have paid attention to. Really is. Now, if you're looking at it, Boise State had 25 first downs. South Florida had 15. Think about that for a minute. They had 10 more first downs. Now, South Florida had one fumble to Boise State's 5. And Boise, as I said, lost 3 of them. Both of them, Boise State had 8, and South Florida had 7 penalties. It's 57 and 56 yards in penalties. So penalties, yeah, were a little bit more than they should have been, but it wasn't excessive on what they were getting for it. Uh, Nobody had interceptions. South Florida actually lost 27 yards to sacks, and Boise State only lost 5. This is, Boise State had 38 rushes. South Florida had 28. If you're looking at the numbers, other than the fumbles, this should have been Boise State all the way. Way more first downs. Uh, this just was not a good day for these two teams. Well, actually, it was. South Florida executed what they needed to execute. Boise State just nothing. So that was Boise State, South Florida. The next game that we're going to look at is Rutgers versus Ohio. Now, Rutgers won this 34-31 against one of the best teams in the MAC conference. Now, if you're looking at this, Peter Navarro for Ohio passed for 239 yards. Palliot Manis for Rutgers passed for 252 rushing yards. Navarro rushed for 93. So he's dual threat quarterback. And Raymond Rutgers rushed for 88. Receiving yards, Hendricks for Ohio had 115. Strong for Rutgers had 100. Jay Crabb had 1 sack for Ohio. Tackles, Williams Jr. had 11. Walker for Rutgers had 13. They didn't get a sack. The defense, here's where the problem was. The offense for Rutgers was performing. The defense, on the other hand, not so much. Now, first downs, they were tied at 24 apiece. Rushes, 31 for Ohio, 37 for Rutgers. Fumbles, neither one of them had fumbles. Uh, Ohio had 6 penalties, 5 penalties for Rutgers, 37 and 35 yards. Neither one of them had interceptions. Rutgers lost 5 yards on a sack. 1 sack, that was it. Um, Looking at this, 21-31 for Ohio, 18-23 for Rutgers. This was more Ohio's defense was getting in there, which they've got Miami of Ohio next. For Rutgers has got Miami of Ohio next. That's another powerful team in the MAC. This is going to be another you're going to have to fight every minute of the game for. And honestly, this is a Rutgers team that went 7-6 last year and went 7-5 in the regular season. This is a team that's going to have to beat out Miami and Norfolk, even consider, well, Norfolk State, pardon me, to even consider what they're going to do because they've got Iowa, Minnesota. They might be able to beat Minnesota. Might be. Washington's going to be a hard one. They're going to be at Washington, at Minnesota. Both those games could be in their wheelhouse, but maybe not. They're going to be at Purdue. They got Oregon this year. They got the Fighting Illini of Illinois. They've got to go there to them. They're got Maryland coming to them. Then they're going to Ohio State. Then Penn State's coming to them for the final season game. This is not going to be an easy season for Rutgers, especially if their defense keeps up with what they were doing in this game. Ohio was being a MAC team. Them barely beating Ohio means they're going to be going into a schedule that's got Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. That's three automatic losses. Washington's not a guarantee. Iowa is probably not going to be a guarantee. Illinois is probably not going to be a guarantee. So they've got to beat out Maryland, Purdue, Minnesota. That might get them to a 6-6 record. Maybe. This is not going to be an easy schedule for Rutgers. And Ohio showed that they're doing what the MAC conference needs them to do. And it's going to show that they're a strong team that's got a very complete offense. This was more bad towards Rutgers, even though they won, than it was good for them. But, now, Central Florida played Jacksonville State. The Knights of Central Florida, being who they are, being a power conference team in the Big 12, and Jacksonville State Gamecocks being a Conference USA team, Big 12 UCF should have, had this game in the bag. UCF only won the 17-10, and that's because they got a lucky stop. They had to bring in a different quarterback. The offense was horrible for Central Florida. And hopefully this is not going to be Cam Fancher got sat down and Taven Jackson had to come in. And he found that he could do it. The defense was what it needed to be against a group of five school. But here's the thing. Scott Frost is taking over a team that went 4-8 last year. Jacksonville State went 9-5. 9-4, pardon me, last year. Tavian Jackson passed for 282 yards. Wimsatt of the Jacksonville State threw for 139. Rushing yards, Montgomery was the leading rusher of Central Florida for 79. Cook was for the Gamecocks 75 yards. Receiving yards, horrible. You would think, looking at this, 17-7, both had Lockett had one sack for the Knights, and Gamecocks had Stansbury for one. So this was not a pretty game to watch. Jacksonville State had 18 first downs. The Knights had 23. Fumbles lost. Now, here was the kicker. Central Florida had 3 fumbles. Jacksonville State had none. And Knights lost a fumble. Both were penalized a little bit more than was good, especially for the Knights. 9 penalties for 80 yards, whereas Jacksonville State had 7 for 60. Jacksonville State had an interception against them. They both sacked quarterbacks, the opposing quarterback 2 times. 39 rushes for Jacksonville State. UCF had 37. This was way too close. And maybe it was because Taven Jackson wasn't in during the entire game. I mean, special teams did good for them. The defense, 4 offsides penalties as part of the 9 that were accrued. You're talking about there's a lot of growing up that Scott Frost has got to do with this team. I am not seeing this as a normal Big 12 team, nor am I seeing this as a team that's got a shot. You keep hearing every year that any team's got a shot at the Big 12 title. I don't see it with Central Florida this year. I'm not even sure if I see them going 6-6 with this kind of play. They're going to get into their schedule, and yeah, they're not going to enjoy it. I mean, you've got a schedule for Central Florida that, okay, they're going to be able to beat North Carolina A&T. Then they've got North Carolina. Who knows what North Carolina is going to be like? Kansas State, I don't see them having the juice to take on Kansas State. Kansas, I'm not sure seeing this game. They're playing like a group of five school. I can see Kansas beating them. Cincy, after watching them tonight, yeah, they once Cincy's quarterback gets going correctly, if he does, that's not going to be an easy game. West Virginia, eh, Baylor can most likely beat them, especially at home. Houston, Texas Tech. I don't know about Oklahoma State. You don't know what you're going to get with Oklahoma State. And then BYU, and they're going to BYU in November. Think about that. They're going to be going to Brigham Young November 29th. This is not an easy schedule for Scott Frost coming in. And I mean, Jacksonville State being Conference USA, if they can get their quarterback going, they'll probably have a decent season. They've got Florida International, Kennesaw State, Middle Tennessee. I don't think that, in all honesty, I don't think they can beat Western Kentucky. Delaware, I don't know if I doubt they could beat Delaware right now the way it's going. Sam Houston, I don't think they can beat. Yeah, this is going to be one of those years where Jacksonville State's not going to be quite as good because of what I saw at this game, but you tell me if you're a fan. North Carolina State Wolfpack 24, East Carolina Pirates 17. In all honesty, this is another one of those games that the winner did not look that good. Now, ECU, I think I've already said it. ECU is one of those teams that they worked hard to build up something good. North Carolina State Wolfpack, Dorn, Dorn has a decent team, but East Carolina went 8-5 last year. NC State went 6-7 and lost. So I think I'd already covered this game a little bit. They lost to East Carolina last year. So Dave Doran's having to pay this back. CJ Bailey, this was one of those. CJ Bailey throwing for 318 yards. Good thing. Hollywood Smothers, 106 yards rushing. This is one of those things where you're looking at it going, you know, it was what it was. ECU is a good team. NC State proved that they're slightly better than last year, even though they lost one of their best players from last year. Hauser for Pirates, 366 passing yards. Now, their leading carrier wasn't that good. They didn't have that good of a rushing game, but honestly, barely did the Wolfpack. 22 carries, 1 TD. ESPN saying 76 yards, whereas GoPack.com is saying 106 yards. This is one of those games where it's showing that North Carolina State improved a little bit, but Yeah, not necessarily where it needs to be at. They'll probably win next week against Virginia, maybe against Wake Forest. I'm not sure if they can say the same about Duke and maybe Virginia Tech. Of course, they'll beat Campbell. They ain't beating Notre Dame. I doubt they'll beat Pitt, Georgia Tech, Miami. I don't know about Florida State. Nobody knows about Florida State. And then you got North Carolina. Nobody knows about that. And that's a rivalry game. So, and well, technically, so is Duke and Wake. But this is a underwhelming North Carolina State offense. Doran has got a decent team, but they need to tighten up a little bit. They got a good tackle behind the line of scrimmage to end this game because ECU was pushing it. Doran's got CJ Bailey is a decent quarterback. I will give him that. I've watched him. He's a decent quarterback, but honestly, Doran's not got the team. He's got a third tier team of the ACC. That's the only way to put it. And ECU being what they are, I would not have been shocked if they came back and won this game. That they got, you know, North Carolina State was prepared for them this time, though. Didn't underestimate them. But I am not, I would not want to be a Wolfpack fan this year. I'll put it that way. Fans probably have going to have a little bit to cheer about this year. Strange game for me to highlight, but Oklahoma State versus UT Martin. Okie State, the Pokes, 27, the Skyhawks 7. Now, part of it could be the simple fact of that QB1 House Hedgney, pardon me, went down in after 3 drives. And this is a good team. UT Martin went 9-5 last year. Yeah, they lost Kansas State, lost Southeast Missouri State. Um, but this is a pretty good team. Oklahoma State, being what it is, Mike Gundy having to deal with what he had to deal with. But QB2 came in, Zane Flores, 13 to 20, 136 yards. Hedgney went 5 of 10, 96 yards. Three drives, 2 touchdowns. UT Martin getting 7 points against this defense is a little wild, and keeping them to 27 is even wilder. Tennessee Martin had 13 first downs. The Pokes had 20. Neither one lost fumbles or had a fumble. Uh, Skyhawks had 7 penalties for 50 yards. Pokes had 5 for 55. That ain't good. Shows that they are needing some discipline. Interceptions, Skyhawks got intercepted once. Skyhawks, their quarterback got sacked 4 times, and they got to the Pokes quarterbacks 2 times. Rushes, Pokes lead that one. It's a this should not have been what you did against an FCS team. Oklahoma State has got a schedule that has them playing Oregon next week. Then they go against Baylor. This is the first time they have won a game since September 14th last year. No joke. And then they've got Baylor, Arizona, Houston, Cincy, Texas Tech, Kansas State, UCF, and Iowa State. The way they played in this game, I'm not sure, other than Tulsa, who they've got that they can beat on this schedule. Mike Gundy, this is going to be putting Mike Gundy into the hot seat. And Oklahoma State scored 14 in the first quarter, then three in the second, three in the third, and a touchdown in the fourth. The only touchdown UT Martin got was in the so their defense, the Cowboys defense did what they needed to do. The Pokes did what they need to do on defense. But their offense, like I said, maybe it was because they went with had to go with QB2, but if Hedgney is down that much this year, this is not going to be a good year for them. Maybe Hedgney will come back. Maybe that's all it was, okay, he went down, needs to break, whatever. But this is not looking good for Mike Gundy or the Pokes. Looking at Minnesota Golden Gophers 23, Buffalo Bulls 10. Mac versus Big Ten. This is one of those games where, hey, the coach is saying Minnesota's O line made the difference. Lindsey for Minnesota had 290 passing yards, two TDs, one interception, went 19 of 35. Bulls quarterback Robertson had 12 of 20 and one touchdown. Rushing yards, Henderson had 11 carries, 25 yards. Taylor had 30 carries, 141 yards. So Minnesota's defense is looking good. The Bulls, now I'm going to say this though, by only beating by 13 points, I mean, you're talking about probably one of the easier hard teams to beat that they've got to deal with. Buffalo is not an easy team to play. I will give them that. But if you're having those kinds of issues, you're going to be going up against possibly can beat Rutgers. You ain't going to beat Ohio State. You, I'm looking at the schedule. Minnesota's actually got an easy schedule. Looking at this game, they've got a far easier schedule than you would imagine. They've got Oregon and Ohio State, but they got Cal, Northwestern State, Rutgers, Purdue. Possibly Nebraska will be an easier win than most people think. Iowa might, they could probably play Iowa pretty good. Michigan State, I don't think that they can. I think Michigan State's a little underrated, maybe. Northwestern might be Wisconsin, possibly. This is going to be a competitive. Looking at this game, looking at their schedule, this could be competitive. Don't normally have that amazing of a first game anyway, especially last year. Um, they went 8-5 last year, so possibly the Golden Gophers just got off to a slow start. But the Bulls still, I mean, it took until the fourth quarter to really put this game where it needed to go. You're talking about nobody scored in the first quarter. Uh, Minnesota had 10, and the Bulls had a field goal in the second. Then third quarter, Minnesota had a field goal. Buffalo had a touchdown. And then it was the fourth quarter when they put them away. That is with 10. And they shut down. Their defense needs to play like they did. Their defense seems to be a strength for this Minnesota team. Their offense needs to be a little bit better. And yes, I know it's a win. Yes, Buffalo is a far better team. I'm not saying anything against them, but for what Buffalo has to go up against with the Big Ten, this is not a Big Ten quality win, but still, it's a win against a very good team that probably should have been ranked last year. So I'll give them that. It was far better for Buffalo in how it looks if Buffalo is, or if Minnesota is able to keep, to have some traction. I'll give them that. But it did come down to the fourth quarter. Um, Drake Lindsey passed for 290 yards, two touchdowns in his debut. Darius Taylor rushed 141 yards on 30 carries. Jameson Gears had four catches, 38 yards, and a score. Redshirt freshman Jalen Smith jogged into the end zone with a wide open 60-yard reception in the fourth quarter. This is what it was. And, the coach said that's shut out O line, running backs, tight ends, receivers. Lindsey had nothing but good things to say. Uh, Al Henderson, who was a 1,000-yard rusher last year, was held to 25 yards on 11 attempts. So that, at least their defense was showing up. Maybe that defense is what their secret's going to be this year. I watched some of the Nebraska Cincinnati game. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm looking at Nebraska's schedule and considering what their performance was, I see them being able to go back to the bowl game, but man, Matt Rule pass defense, they got lucky. They've got one good play that they can hang their hat on. Nebraska's got Michigan, Penn State this year, Michigan State, which is probably going to be a tough one. Now, their next game's against Akron and then Houston Christian. So they're going to start out 3-0. Then they got to deal with Michigan. Then Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, UCLA, Penn State, and Iowa. Now, I don't think they'll have a problem with UCLA, but this is a Cincy team that, I'll be honest with you, they didn't have that good of a year last year. And you're looking at their pass offense. Dylan Raiola did not look good in this game. One, he was probably better than a lot of people expected. He wasn't what, everybody kept talking about Dylan Raiola all this year. Okay, yeah, he had some good numbers. 243 passing yards, Stores fees 69. 33 of 42, two touchdowns. But here's the thing. 20 points. He had two touchdowns and that was, Johnson, their running back for Nebraska. Now he showed out 108 yards, 25 carries. Sorsby, leading rusher. Since he's trying to do dual threat, 13 carries, two touchdowns, and he had an interception. Though passing, receiving yards, I'm not really. I'll be honest with you, I'm not really impressed by either team. But everybody keeps talking about, oh no, Matt Rule, third year. What I saw in this game, I'm not seeing that third year thing being all that good. Just by who they have on their schedule, yes, they'll go to a bowl game. But this game, Dylan Raiola did not take over like he needed to. 2013, Cincinnati was not that good enough of a team to do this. Sorsby did what he had to do. Raiola did what he had to do, but that's all they did. Um, Run defense though, that was their pass defense was, you know, I'm looking at Omaha.com. They gave a B plus to the pass defense. Yeah, but they were still making them. Run defense, though, was not doing that great. So I'm looking at this going, anybody that wants to beat Nebraska this year just needs to watch this game and they can see what it will take to beat them. Seriously. All they got to do is watch this game and it'll show you how to beat Nebraska. Unless Dylan Raiola picks it up a little bit more and they get more lucky interceptions like they did at the end of the game, this is not a Nebraska team that's going to be that scary this year. Like I said, people are talking about Matt Rule, third year, this his year. Maybe it's a slow start, but I mean, at least Matt Rule called a decent game with what performance he was getting. But these players were not performing at the level that they needed to perform at to be in the Big Ten. They really aren't. Cincinnati was what you expected Cincinnati to be. Their schedule, they're going to be struggling to get to a bowl game. If certain teams are a little bit worse, like Oklahoma State, I can imagine them beating Oklahoma State. They ain't beating Iowa State, Kansas. They might be able to beat UCF. I don't know about Utah, but they should be able to beat Utah. Arizona, I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be one of those years for Cincinnati, and like I said, I keep hearing everybody talking about, oh, Matt Rule, third year, that's the way it normally goes. This didn't show it. I'm going to say this one's a far better game than it looks like. Wisconsin Badgers, 17. Miami of Ohio Redhawks, nothing. Defense for Wisconsin was key in this game. Miami of Ohio is not a scrub team. They played in the MAC Conference Championship game last year. Wisconsin scoring as low as they did came because they lost quarterback. 3 plays in, they lost Billy Edwards. That's he was doing a handoff, didn't get sacked or anything like that, so they had to bring in QB2. O'Neal had to get comfortable. It did not look like he was expecting to go in this game. O'Neal had 120 passing yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. Uh, you know, Ben for Miami of Ohio had 83 passing yards, 2 interceptions. So the defense was key in this game. Rushing yards. The leading rusher for Miami of Ohio was Tracy, 6 carries, 15 yards. Ben was 9 of 18, by the way. So he was 50%, 12-19 for O'Neal. Their leading rusher, 14 carries, 73 yards, and Jones for the Badgers. The leading receiver only had, for Miami of Ohio, only had 35 yards, while the leading receiver of Wisconsin only had 57. 4 receptions, 1 TD. Miami of Ohio actually got in 2 sacks by Trick, and Peterson only had the one. It was a Wisconsin. If Edwards can get healthy, sure, this is going to be a good team. Their defense knows what they're doing. Wisconsin had 23 first downs versus Miami of Ohio's 7. Da da da. Neither had fumbles. Penalties didn't really hurt them other than the fact that they both had 5. Miami of Ohio had 60 yards and penalty yards. Wisconsin had 40. Uh, Miami of Ohio got intercepted twice, Wisconsin once. Time sack, both of them got 3 sacks on the quarterback. So this is a tough Miami of Ohio team. To do this, Wisconsin is saying, "Hey, look at us. We ain't playing around." They've got a tough schedule in front of them. They only went 5-7 last year, so they're wanting a better season this year. So they got the win against Miami of Ohio. Middle Tennessee should be a win, but then they're going to Alabama. Then they're going to Michigan. They've got Ohio State coming to them. Then they go to Oregon. They go to Indiana. They have Illinois coming to them. I'm saying they could beat Minnesota, Washington, possibly, maybe Iowa, maybe Maryland. This is going to be one of those seasons where they're going to have to rely on that defense, and they're going to have to get Edwards left the game after 3 downs, and he was showing that he's got something. I don't know. I mean, Miami of Ohio is a tough team, and it's going to prepare them. But unless one of the teams that I named that they've got tough games with, this is not going to be a bowl season for Wisconsin. And I mean, maybe if Edwards is able to get in there, because it didn't look like they had prepared O'Neal. O'Neal's needing to have far more reps from the looks of it. He just didn't seem to be as prepared as he needed to be. And why Wisconsin keeps having to deal with the fact that their QBs get hurt, but it was a good game still. For having your QB1 go down like they did, yeah, this good game still. So, you know, I would say Wisconsin's going to be a scary team this year. I don't know what the schedule though. They're going to be running into some nastiness to be able to be scary, but never can tell. It might happen. I know it sounds like I was down a little bit on some of this, but I'm looking at the realistic view on a lot of this. Hey, there were some good games today. I mean, San Diego State did far better than I thought they would. 42-0 against Stony Brook. Wisconsin having QB1 go down, they did pretty good. UAB's offense looked like they did really good, but their defense was lacking. Oklahoma State just, I know. And North Carolina State looks like they're going to be what they were last year. Mizzou, though, came out 61-6 against Central Arkansas. This is not a. This was a really good gauge on several of these teams. Louisiana Monroe showed what they could be. So did Delaware, playing rivals with Delaware State game first, because Delaware State coming up. They're already 1-0. Houston did what they needed to do against Stephen Austin. Duke offense looked good. Their defense, but Wyoming won a game against Akron. Um, yeah. Bowling Green did what they had to do against Lafayette. This is not a, you know, this is looking like these teams are going to be far more compacted in some of these conferences than we think. I thought there were some good games worth watching. I didn't watch the Mizzou game all that much. Why? 61-6 against Central Arkansas. Really, why watch a game like that? I didn't watch Duke game, but then again, no. Other than the defense, probably wouldn't have learned anything. NC State, I said it before that this could be an East Carolina win. North Carolina State doing what they did, they're looking like what they were last year. They just had more time to prepare against East Carolina, knew what they were getting. That's the only reason they were able to get that win, in my opinion. Nebraska underperformed immensely. I'm just, some of these teams, they got a lot of things they got to get on the practice field and figure out. And hopefully this is going to be able to do that for them, but I'm not sure. But I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. This has been Paul with Redneck Sports. Y'all have a good day now. Bye.
I want to thank you for watching my video. And if you like what you saw, like, subscribe, and comment. Y'all have a good day now.